This is Jim Feist in Las Vegas, and we did a little podcast last week with my old friend ChipJim050118. We're actually sitting on a park bench, and it was kind of fun. Today, Chipper's joining me today. We're going to talk a little bit about sports, but specifically we're going to get into the early look at what happened in the NFL draft. Chipper, welcome, good morning, and glad to have you back.
Thank you, Jim. It's great to be back, and it's always fun. And this year's draft proved to be pretty interesting, I think, the way things played out and laid out. And it pretty much went to Hoyle. I think people they drafted who we expected them to draft, but later on there were some interesting takes.
Yeah, there were. I didn't do as much of a deep dive into the draft at this point. I've been kind of focused on baseball and basketball, but I was listening to, and I don't remember the name, I was listening to Brian Billick the other day, and he was saying he thought the best quarterback in the draft was a kid, and I can't remember the guy's name, and I was kind of trying to look it up on Twitter if I could find it, but, we had the top guys. We all know that Darnold and Rosen and Allen and all those, and people were saying, well, they really didn't think any of them were absolutely slam dunk going to be super successful in the NFL. But there'll be backups, and some will progress and some won't. It'll depend on what kind of coaching they get, what kind of opportunity they get, what kind of offensive line they get. There's so many factors that go into it. Yet the NFL focuses so much on paying. Well, of course, the rookie contracts aren't that big, but they're willing to pay so much of their budget, the cap number, to the quarterback without building the offensive line or a solid running back that can keep the pass rush off. And I think that's a mistake, and I'm glad to see that the pendulum has begun to change and swing back a little bit to let's build a solid offensive line, let's build a solid defensive line with some pass rushers, and let's put some backs behind these quarterbacks that can slow down that pass rush, carry the ball for some yards, get some first downs, and be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. A little bit more balance, and I like that direction.
Well, Jim, what you're saying is there's an old adage that you win from the inside out. Start with the line, your interior, and work your way out to the skill positions. And, there were some teams out there that needed the skill position players, and you could see they went after them. Arizona's had a dormant offense, and they lost the quarterback, of course. But, 3 of their top 5 picks were quarterback, wide receiver, 3 of the top 4 picks. And they took this running back from Fordham, Chase Edmonds. And you got to watch out for this guy because not too many people realize who he is, but he's a quality back. And so Arizona went after, 3 key offensive players. And it was kind of interesting the way things set up. Jim, that 4 teams, I'm not talking about first-round picks, but 4 teams, their first pick was a safety.
I didn't know that.
And I found that very surprising.
Well,
the Dolphins went.
When the age of passing, I guess that's a skill position you do need, but I did not know that stat.
Yeah, the Dolphins took one, the Steelers took one. Someone else at number 3, their first pick was the safety of Houston. So there were 4 safeties taken by the first pick by particular teams. And, we had discussed the Browns picking Nate. And, before I get to that, you mentioned that the quarterbacks all had shortcomings. Every one of them. There was nobody that was a slam dunk. And that's why it seems so crazy to me that people weren't willing to trade down or move over, because we really can never tell or know which one of these guys is going to end up being great. Mayfield, they complain about his size and his character. Rosen, of course, they wonder if he's fragile. Darnold, is he just doesn't protect the ball well enough? So there's a lot of questions about a lot of these guys. But the interesting thing I look at is teams that draft looking for certain positions as opposed to players. I mean, Green Bay's first two picks were cornerbacks, and then they end up taking three wide receivers in the next 4 picks.
Wow.
So they were addressing a need, obviously.
Going out to the AFC West, Denver really loaded up on some skill position players. And
I think, yes, you're right. I mean, I think they did really well. Go ahead.
And then San Diego, I thought, did a remarkable job building their defense. They're going to be very difficult on the defensive side of the ball. And as a matter of fact, the numbers that I saw, I should have actually gotten this. We could do another podcast and look at the over and under win totals for the NFL. Remarkably, San Diego has a higher win total in the AFC West than anyone else.
Well, it must have to do with scheduling, Jim. And by the way, their defense, which was excellent last year, you're right. The impact this year is going to be even greater. They really did strengthen up. And I'm thinking San Diego Chargers, but we're talking LA Chargers, and they were a team that took a safety first as well from Florida State. They picked this Derwin James, who's great. But you know what, Jim? What would you say was the most surprising pick? I mean, instinctually, of what you saw.
Oh boy, I'm not sure I've done a deep enough dive to,
right.
And I look at the Cleveland Browns, and I don't want to pick on the Cleveland Browns, but this is they don't need to be picked on. They pick on themselves. They won one game out of the last 42 games, and I mean, who the hell does that? And their draft.
They extended the coach, Jim, because they like the direction they're going in. I don't know what to tell you about that.
that's going down the toilet. Well, anyway, I can't put it all on the coach. They had some terrible draft picks, and Manziel thing was a joke a couple of years ago, especially when all the red flags were there in the beginning, that he was he's too smart, too small, too short, too many bad habits off the field, spoiled kid coming from money. All those things were negatives, but they took them anyway. But taking Baker Mayfield when they could have taken the running back in first position and then you had position 4 where they could have gotten that particular Mayfield at that spot possibly, or any of the others, which are kind of all equal anyway. And
exactly. And
I didn't get that.
Be the best.
Pardon?
Okay, I'm sorry for cutting you off, Tim. You really don't know which one is going to be the best. And you're right, he probably would have been available at 4 because the Giants would have gone to a lineman and the Jets would have gone with Darnold. So, we had mentioned before, so I understand what you're saying completely. And taking this Ward, the cornerback at number 4, Tim, Cleveland could have easily traded down into like the 15th, 13th spot, gotten an extra pick, and still had gotten this defensive back that they wanted. The impulse or the instinct here was for everyone to take, like you said, the skilled players.
Now, Chipper, I know you're from New York. I spent a lot of years in New York. We worked together in New York at the Old A place, sitting on a railroad tie together. Never forget those days. The Giants, what did you think of the Giants draft?
Well, I'm a Giants fan, and I'm happy they really needed a running back badly, and they went after him and they got him. So I was happy about that. Obviously, the Giants, the concern here is how long is Eli Manning going to last for the Giants, and they addressed their quarterback issue in the 4th round. They took a player out of Richmond who's supposed to have a mediocre arm, but great football instincts and tremendous accuracy. So they took the kid from Las Vegas, Will Hernandez, at a guard from number 2, and then the Giants need offensive line help, and they only took one offensive line player. So maybe they did get one tackle, I think, from the Patriots in the trade earlier. So I'm just happy with the Giants taking Barkley.
Well, I'm happy they took Barkley. I'm upset with the offensive line because Eli can still play. Eli is still a quality quarterback, but no quarterback is going to sit back there and take pounding after pounding after pounding and rush throws. I mean, you can't not play quarterback without an offensive line. There's nobody. I mean, go out to Russell Wilson. My God, and when they had to pay him all the money and they got rid of some of the offensive line, they got rid of a great center, and I mean that guy runs for his life on every play, but he's a damn good quarterback. You can't make a quarterback play well when he has no time to read the field, read the defenses, and then the offensive line can't block for him, and they can't block for the running back either. So it's a ridiculous concept to focus everything on quarterbacks, especially when you have no idea if they're going to pan out. There was no Andrew Luck or Deshaun Watson in this
Right.
draft. So I think the building of the lines is really very important, and I love what the teams did that focused on their defense and their offensive lines.
Right. And like we said, I mean, building a team from the inside out appears the way to go. I mean, all they did was badmouth the quarterback from Jacksonville. What was his name? Blake. And when he took them to the conference finals because they had a strong running game and a strong interior, like you were saying. The one thing I want to get to, Jim, before we close, was, to me, the hottest pick of the entire draft was made by the New England Patriots, who in the 6th round, and they still had 2 other picks aside from this. Actually, it was their first pick in the 7th round. They took the quarterback, I don't know if you remember him, Danny Etling from LSU. This kid, in my opinion, was one of the worst Division I quarterbacks I had ever seen. Slow, inaccurate, poor decision-making. I was in shock that New England drafted this guy. And I was shocked that he got drafted at all. And it tells me one of 2 things, Jim. Either the Patriots know something we don't know, and they have absolutely no regard for the LSU coaching staff, that they would take this kid. I think they could have signed him as a free agent after the draft. When the Patriots of all teams, if the Browns had taken him or some other club had taken him, but the Patriots, they usually do their due diligence so well. I may be wrong. I was in shock that this player was selected.
Well,
Because he was.
And the caveat there is, when you look back at Bill Belichick and his crew and what he's done with players that absolutely nobody else wanted, then you got to wonder that this guy could be the greatest steal in the draft. When they do something like that, I'm in line with what you're thinking. There must be something there that no one else saw.
Exactly. When I'm looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, what are they thinking? Because there were still a number, like I said, that Logan Woodside, there were a few other quarterbacks that were still available, and it's either, I don't know. I don't know what they saw in him, or that they think he just has poor coaching and they can do something with him. But that, to me, Jim, was the most surprising pick of the draft, and surprising because it was the Patriots that took him.
Moving back out west,
Okay.
John Gruden got a huge contract from the Raiders. And, of course, the Raiders will be the Vegas Raiders in a couple of years. What do you think about the direction that John Gruden took in the draft?
Well, the first thing he did was he took that Martavius Bryant from the Steelers because they had such difficulties with him. And he is as good as any receiver out there, Jim. So to start with, I thought that that the Raiders made a really good move there because Carr, if he's healthy, is accurate and can play football at quarterback. And last year, they had a lot of different breakdowns. So I like the move he made, getting him. Then from there, he went to build his offensive line because I guess the player that they wanted, he traded down because the player they actually wanted was taken before they had a chance to make their selection. So I'm thinking in a more positive light that the Raiders will be much improved.
You know, the Raiders spent a lot of money to get Gruden out of the press box where he was, doing pretty well and making pretty good money. Not too often, these coaches don't come back to coaching. They like the cush job.
Sure.
But he came out. Of course, he got a lot of money, So, I mean, it's hard to say no to that kind of money. What did you think on that contract for the Raiders? Did they overpay? Did they, was it just a press move? So, okay, it's going to sell a lot of tickets. We're moving to Vegas. That's a big deal. John Gruden's a popular guy. It's probably great for ticket sales. Of course, Vegas will sell everything out anyway. And we can talk about the the amazing nights when we're done with this.
Yes. Oh, wow. I think that my feeling was that the Raiders made more of a public relations move. I mean, if you check Gruden's overall record through his whole coaching stint, he's closer to 500. But I think he knows his stuff, and I think he's added some positive energy to the Raiders, and he's he's a strong personality. I mean, he went after mostly alignment, and he went after one skill position player, a receiver from I think it was Oklahoma State on their final pick, and so I think he feels pretty confident with what he has in the skill positions right now. But like we said before, you build from the inside out, and he went after a lot of interior linemen, both on offense and defense.
That's great when you start out with a quarterback that's very highly rated, and you don't really have to worry about going out and getting the quarterback, and you can build around that.
Yeah, that's true. He's got to stay healthy, though, Jim. He's got to stay healthy.
Well, that's where that offensive line comes in. If you don't try to run the ball like some guys try to do, you take too many shots from those backs and those linemen, you're going to get yourself beat up pretty good.
And, like what you said before, Eli Manning, if he has the time and isn't being pressured, he can still throw the ball. I mean, he can still throw the ball really well. So, like you said, you got to give these quarterbacks a little room and a little time to let the play develop and to make the throw. So it's so important.
We're running, getting into that 17-minute time. We got 5 or 6 minutes if you want to go. But last night we watched Philadelphia open a 2-point favorite and go up to a 5-point favorite on the road in the Boston Garden. Now, when you look at history and you look at patterns from the past and everything, you don't go out and make anybody a road favorite in Boston. But because of the injuries that Boston's had to a lot of people and a lot of sharps, we're laying those numbers because those numbers moved a lot. But when it comes down to the tradition of Boston, the head coach, Brad Stevens, in my opinion, and I think you agree, should be the coach of the year for what he's done and with all the injuries he's had. And then last night, they were up without their leading scorer in the playoffs, Jaylen Brown, and they went out and they kicked butt. But when I look at these...
They dominated the play.
Yeah, they did. But when you look at the stats of the game, and I broke that down this morning in another pod that I did. In the stats of that game, Philadelphia really played well in most cases, in most statistics. However, the most fickle stat is three-point shooting. And Philadelphia shot 19% from threes, and Boston shot 50% from threes. You can't overcome that, especially when you're...
No, I agree.
It's that one statistic, and this is where, back in the day, that three-point shot didn't exist because there was no three-point shot. But over the years, it started to become implemented, and it was a part of the game, but it wasn't the game. Now it's the game. So
now it's the game, without question.
To me, I don't like it, but it is what it is, and you got to go with it, and it sells tickets and all that stuff. But you can't maintain hitting 50%, and you're not going to maintain Philadelphia hitting 19%. So when you look forward to the next game, you still got Boston as a home dog, 3.5-point home dog.
It's amazing because they're the higher seed, Jim. And, Embiid said it. He says when we came out, Brad Stevens' game plan was to not allow them room to get a good look on those three-point shots. you know, and so I think they were 2 for 16 at one time, and they never had a good open look. Now, the only guy that doesn't need an open look is probably Curry, and maybe Thompson from Golden State, but I think it was Brad Stevens' game plan that set it up, and I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happens again in Game 2.
Well, you know, you got a guy like Embiid who's 7'2" and very mobile and can do a lot of things. In my opinion, you're going to see the same kind of a swing in the NBA in movement of styles as you're starting to see and you're going to see in the NFL, where you start going back towards the running back a little bit more. The pendulum has swung too far to one side. You're going to start to see a 7-foot guy with tremendous mobility, ball handling skills, like an Embiid, taking people low. Yeah, they're not going to have the threes, but they're going to get a ton of twos, and they're going to get a lot of foul shots. And the game is going to start to go back to where it belongs. We're a little bit more balanced when you're not having 5 guys out on the wings, shooting threes. So you're going to see some of that. And when you talk about Golden State, everybody talks about Curry, and everybody talks about Durant, but you got a guy on that team that doesn't get enough credit. Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson can give you 20, 30, 40 points a night. All he has to do is focus on the offensive side. This guy is the best defensive player they have. And he can shut down anybody, give you the points, and clog up the passing lanes. That team, and I'm going to give this out on the podcast, that team is going to win the NBA championship again.
I won't be surprised. Houston, of course, has the big threat, but Curry, they're cruising along right now, and Curry hasn't even played yet, and they've got a little more depth than people realize, I guess.
And you got to realize one other thing: the year that Kerr made a huge mistake was when they chased that record for the regular season record, okay? And he burned those guys out, and they were up 3-1 against Cleveland. Draymond Green got suspended for a game. Cleveland took it over, and they won the game. They won the series in 7. That should have not happened. They should have been a little bit more judicious with their time and energy during the season. This team is going to be on a run. Houston, I like Houston. There's nothing wrong. I mean, you can't talk anything bad about Houston. They're good. They're really good.
They're good. They could win, Jim. I know. You and I both favor Golden State, but Houston could win. I mean, it's not out of the question. You know what I'm saying?
I do not disagree at all. They could win. The difference is, do they know how to win? That
I don't know yet.
Now you're basically a professional athlete at one time. You could have here or there. I won't get into it, but you have to know how to win, and that when it comes down to how to win, and it's a head-to-head match between Houston and the Warriors. I know the Warriors know how to win.
That's going to be a great series. Really, it's going to be a great series. Jim, when we watch these games now, do you realize that there wasn't one player in that 7-game series between Cleveland and Indiana? There wasn't one player on the Cleveland Cavaliers other than LeBron James who scored 20 points in a game.
In any game.
And there wasn't
in any game.
In any game. And there wasn't one player on Cleveland that, aside from James, that averaged double figures. I think Kevin Love is like 10.4. Only one other player. And LeBron, this is one of the greatest achievements I've ever seen. Now, I understand that most likely Harden's going to get the MVP. But this LeBron James is just totally unstoppable. I mean, he took the ball midcourt and decides he wants to make a layup, and he's too unselfish. He gives the ball to everyone else, and no one else on that team can play.
And the fact is, you're right, 100%. I mean, he's the best athlete that plays basketball I've ever seen.
The biggest force, most powerful force I've seen out there. I mean, Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 points one year, but he had people that stopped him. You know what I mean? I mean, Bill Russell would come up and negate him, and I haven't seen anyone that can hold this guy back.
Well, the one thing that's going to hold him back is fatigue. That's going to get him. He plays too many minutes and has to do too much. He's not going to be able to maintain this through the playoffs. If it gets to the final, it'll be ugly, because he has to do too much.
Yeah, I mean, if you saw, we all saw last night, and he said, "I'm not coming out. But he was so dehydrated and exhausted. I mean, he said he didn't take an IV; that he was just eating oranges. But he's just such a dominant force out there.
It's a pleasure to watch. I don't know where he's going to go next year, but it's going to be interesting. That's going to be a great off-season topic. Hey, I have to cut this off because we're at that 26 point.
Okay, buddy.
But this was a lot of fun, Chipper, and let's talk in the next couple of days. We'll set up another one.
Well, that'd be great. Thanks a lot, Ken.
Okay, thank you, Chip. You there? Stay there. You can stay. I'm on. Yeah. I'm still on. I stopped recording, but.